Denise, would you read the instructions from the governor on having the meeting by content?
Sure. Okay. So public comments, they can be submitted one of three ways. You may send an email to the recording assistant at boardopscommittee@evparks.org. You may leave a voicemail at 510-544-2500, or you can join via the live stream, which has the link of the Zoom account in the agenda posted on our website.
Thank you. Could we have roll call, please?
Okay. Director Coffey?
Present.
Director Eccles?
Present.
Director Wieskamp?
Present. Thank
AGM
you.
O'Connor?
Present.
And today we do have several presenters and staff members joining the meeting. That includes Ruby Tumber, Chief Gioburo, Captain Love, Ann Kassebaum, David Vance, Patrick Demmons, Renee Patterson, Robert Kennedy, Sarah Lamborn, and Tiffany Margolisi.
Welcome all. All right, we will then go into the first item, and that is a recommendation for a new agreement for the Little Hills Concession Los Trampas Regional Wilderness. I believe that's Tiffany.
And Director Wieskamp, just real quick, staff, if you're not presenting on this item, could you please turn off your video?
Okay.
There we go. Okay, I'm just gonna pass this one on to Tiffany, and I'll step in as needed.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, committee, and I'm Tiffany Margolisi, the Business Services Manager, and I'm going to be sharing my screen. One moment. And do I have the main screen shared?
We've got the notes screen.
Thank you for your patience. I'm going to swap those. Okay, there we go. So welcome this afternoon. We're leading off with this presentation on Little Hills Recreation Area. It's an event concession, and it's a request for proposal review. What I'll be doing is, if anyone isn't familiar, I'll give a little location and background on Little Hills, and then talk about our request for proposal timeline and process. And then I'll lead into how we came to our recommended concessionaire, talk a little bit about the recommended concessionaire's business plan, the term, fees, and revenue, and then conclude with what staff is recommending. So here's an overview, aerial view of Little Hills. It's a 20-acre fenced, self-contained concession area within Los Trampas. And here shows the outline of where it is. Here's a different representation of it with Bollinger Canyon Road, the parking, and of course, many beautiful picnic areas for events, weddings, corporate events, and picnics. This concession was purchased in 1976. As I said, it's self-contained unto itself and surrounded by the beautiful Los Trampas Regional Wilderness. It's quite large. It can serve groups of up to 1,400 people. Here's another view of it. Again, it's 20 acres. It has the refreshment building, the commissary, restroom, swimming pool, chlorinator building, water supply, meadow, and of course the barbecue and picnic areas where the events are focused. So for this request for proposal, we follow our very refined process here for request for proposals. We do competitive bidding and announcements. We announced this back in April 2021. We do our site visit, which is mandatory. And that site visit is the only time staff will discuss the RFP with potential bidders. So everyone's getting the same information at the same time. And then we do a formal interview process that included an outside panelist, and then let the prospective bidders know our selection. I did note in the committee's memo that this is our second RFP process, and Director Wieskamp may have been on the committee in 2019. We had gone through an RFP process, which then with the onset of COVID, we had canceled that RFP and issued a new one, given the significant change in conditions for the event industry. Here's a little bit more about it, just showing we do our traditional legal ad in the newspaper, all the way to using social media with public affairs support, Facebook and LinkedIn posts. We did direct mail to 21 different entities, businesses that are in this industry. We had 3 different entities represented at the site visit and received 2 proposals. The RFP outlines all the scores and the process for the interview. And so we went through that process, including a representative from the town of Moraga, who has a similar event concession in their community. The staff's recommendation is for Palmdale Estate Events. Some of their key values, as they've shared it with us, are professionalism, sustainability, and kindness. Kindness to their customers and to their staff. They're bringing 34 years of experience with full service weddings and events. These are some pictures of their other locations, events they've done. They have a very flexible approach to catering, where they can adjust their menus to a wide variety of cultural requests, dietary requests. So the committee really thought that was a strength in this concessionaire. They also have a focus on sustainability throughout all areas of their business, and they bring expertise in maintenance, human resources, sales, and business. I did allude to their other locations. They have operated at Palmdale Estates, which is a historic property in Fremont that is now closed. But they had similar experience at scale, working on maintaining grounds similar to the one size at Little Hills. And then they are the current concessionaire for Ardenwood Events. And Ardenwood Events has a very similar market, where it's a mix of very heavily on the weddings and ceremonies, but also complemented by corporate events. So you can see the sack races and other things that they do with the corporate side. Here they are, Lindsay Caravelli and Nick Caravelli, and I believe they are joining us or will be joining us on the Zoom. Lindsay is the CEO. She has excitement, expertise in the event industry, and takes a really personal approach to working with the brides and grooms or anyone planning their special day. And then Nick is the CFO and Director of Operations. Nick has a business management degree and also construction work experience. So they're very complementary team in terms of what they're bringing. Some of their business plan and projects. Palmdale Estate Events has a good track record and experience of doing small investment with high return on investment, good impact. So they're looking at things like putting a new ceremony arbor, possibly modernizing the pool furniture, looking at lighting, signs, drought-friendly landscaping, canvas market umbrellas. So they're very good at keeping an eye on the current trends and making those adjustments to keep the market really interested. The term length as advertised in the RFP was 5 years with a 5-year option. And that is very typical of what we offer now. The fee as proposed by Palmdale is a 5% concession fee, and then additional 5% to be paid into the concession maintenance fund for a total of 10%. And like all of our concessions, that's paid based on gross revenue at the location. Looking at Little Hills and COVID and the transition from to a new concessionaire at this location, we are estimating the first 1 to 3 years to be about revenue and CMF of about $90,000 annually, and then bumping up to in years 3 and beyond as they're more established, looking to $100,000 up to $150,000 annually based on past business and the proposed fee. So the recommendation is for staff to, from staff to the Board Operations Committee, is to recommend to the full board the selection of Palmdale Estate Events as the concessionaire for Little Hills for an initial term of 5 years with a possible 5-year extension, with the fees being set at 5% concession fee and 5% CMF. So I went through that rather quickly, but I'm ready to answer any questions. I'll stop my screen share. And I also see that Lindsay and Nick Carabelli are here to answer any specific questions about their business.
Thank you, Tiffany. Board members, questions? Anyone?
I'll go a couple.
Go ahead,
Well,
Colin.
Let's go there with Colin Coffey then, please.
Under this arrangement, if they were doing a poor job or there were a lot of complaints, how easy is it to discontinue the arrangement contractually?
Great question. So we do have in our standard concession contract a section for remedies and notice. So what we would do is look if there's, first of all, especially when a concessionaire is new, we meet with them on a regular standing basis. Myself, Renee Patterson is part of the business services team, and then the operations representative. So we're expecting to have a very close communication as things are kicking off, and then of course ongoing. If there is a concern in terms of a breach of contract or not delivering on performance, we notify the concessionaire in writing, and then they have, I believe it's or 30 days or 60 days to remedy their default. And then at that point, we could proceed with terminating the contract if that was necessary.
And there are regular performance evaluations?
There are, that's a great question. We do more of a regular check-in. Usually we start off a new concessionaire at either monthly or every other month. We have standing agenda items. We're going over where we think they're doing well, where they have concerns. So we don't have a formal evaluation, like a written evaluation process for concessionaires, but we're really documenting that through our meetings, our notes, and our agendas with them.
And also, Director Coffey, one of our strategies that we've adopted is, especially with newer concessionaires, obviously we've worked with Palmdale Estates in the past, we do shorter term contracts. That way that if we get to the end of an initial term and we're not satisfied with the services, or there's other issues going on, we can obviously opt out of extending their contract and move back into the RFP process.
Okay, and lastly, I think you covered this, but I just slip my mind. Who does reservations for Little Hills and Ardenwood for these events? Do our reservation staff do that?
No, that is part of the concessionaire's responsibility.
So there are numbers or contact information for both Ardenwood and Little Hills, and they would be referring people to this Palmdale for
Palmdale.
To make the reservation.
That's right. And right now, since we're in the midst of a transition, we have the information that right now we're recommending Palmdale for the 2022 weddings, because of course, weddings are planned far in advance. So we're letting everyone who's interested in 2022 know that this is our recommendation. And then once assuming the contract is approved, then Palmdale could start entering into contracts after it's signed.
Just for my own education, then, this is being operated differently than the Brazilian Room, where we just had the 80th anniversary this weekend at a really, really nice party.
Mm-hmm.
So it's on my mind.
Yeah.
And I'm curious how that developed. Our people market the Brazilian Room. I understand they do, and we do internally reservations, and we have a list of preferred vendors and caterers, which in my mind keeps our people involved in this service, and there are benefits to that. And for some reason, I understand we've been doing this, but I've been around 4 years, so I'm not sure why did events at Ardenwood and Little Hills evolve differently.
You want to lead off on that, Jim? Or
So it's a good question, Director Coffey. I think that there's always a balance. You know, concessions are always a way that if there's a niche business that can be done better by the private sector, then we tend to concession it out. In the case of the reservoir facilities, those are buildings that traditionally have been managed by park staff, by district staff. So I don't think there's the wedding business especially is a really difficult business, and Lindsay does a really great job of it. So I think that's just the answer right there. Is that we try to figure out there's niche businesses, like for instance there's a scrub-a-mutt out at Point Isabel is a very niche business. For us to get into that and have the turnover of staff or to have that expertise in that area, it just isn't within our wheelhouse of our normal duties that we do within the district.
And it's coincidentally the Brazilian room and rental facilities cater RFP is the next item on the agenda today. So we'll be talking a little bit more about that. It's a hybrid model where we have caterers running the events and we have maintenance responsibilities. This is based on the concessionaire model, which we have 18 different concessionaires throughout the district of different types where we do that.
And I agree, Jim, with what you're suggesting. And for instance, I agree that the Bridge Yard should have a separate concessionaire, especially for the marketing piece of it and operations because of the particular niche that landed in. But as you know, we had a discussion about that with our union, and we eventually, despite their position on it, which I thought was reasonable, we decided to go ahead with that on Bridge Yard. And it just may be something because we should look at some point, because I think we do a really, really good job with the Brazilian room and weddings there, having gotten involved in that myself some 36 years ago. So it may be not such a niche that we need to go out of house to do these kind of operations. But again, I understand it's been done that way, and so we're not looking at a new arrangement. But I'm just airing out what you've heard before. Philosophically, I don't like the idea of concessions where we can do that in-house.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add to that, Director Coffey, is that remember these operations on the concession side included many employees and equipment, and all of that has to be accounted for when you look at the total cost of if we did this in-house. So those are all things that I often have to think about in my portion of the business and when we're developing budget. So right now one of my focuses right now is park staffing and dealing with capacity issues out in the parks. So that's always a challenge. That would be my number one priority in terms of staffing, growth each year versus these concessionaires. They manage the people, they manage the equipment, they manage the customer at this point. And it just at this point, I would agree. Now, normally my position on many things is that our staff do such a great job because they're part of our organization. They have a lot of buy-in to our mission. But in these cases, I think it's a trade-off where these people have a lot of expertise in these specific niche areas. So I think it is to our benefit in these specific cases. But generally, my position is I agree that parks district staff certainly have that buy-in and that connection with the community.
Okay, thank you for responding. Appreciate it.
Okay. Elizabeth.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, I'd just like to say I appreciate the presentation and was particularly struck by the stated values of this concessionaire and sustainability and kindness in particular. And so just wanted to acknowledge that. And I did want to hear a little bit more, possibly from the representatives here about their sustainability practices and what they're doing to make this as green a business as possible.
That sounds, do you have any other questions or shall we ask?
That was the main one. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, let's see, I believe the Caravellis are here, a representative. And so I think let's listen to them, right?
Hello.
And there they are.
Hi.
Hi.
Lovely to meet all of you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So to answer Elizabeth's question, that is definitely one of our top values is sustainability. It is something that we think about every single day in our business and our everyday operations and our wedding operations as a whole and events. So some of the ways in which we bring sustainability to our business is, well, at Ardenwood, for example, we have replanted a lot of water-wise plants and a native garden. We use a lot of any kind of sitting water that we have access to. That's what we water our plants with. So it's sort of this kind of ecological planting system. We also have developed something within our business called a something borrowed collection. And that is to help brides kind of reduce one-use items that they would normally purchase for a wedding. So we have all sorts of really wonderful rentals that they can rent that we kind of know and predict within our wedding planning and event planning that these couples and these clients will need. So that has reduced so much waste. We do a lot with composting and recycling, and we go through extensive training with all of our staff on how to do these properly. If there are items that we cannot compost or that we have left over that are still perfectly good to eat or whatnot, we work with a couple of local organizations in Fremont in particular, but we're looking for some in the San Ramon area as well, to donate food. So we work with Daily Bowl and we work with Viola Blythe, and we donate food to them so that, you know, nothing goes to waste, or as little goes to waste as possible. We also donate a lot of flowers and anything that's left from a wedding that a couple doesn't want to take. We are constantly looking for good homes for those items. So what
Yeah, and I
else?
think also we have a lot of influence, right, when these couples are planning their wedding,
Yes,
to
that's
where
true.
instead of plastic shot glass as a favor for their guests, we'll do like either some local honey or something like that in a glass jar, just like trying to guide them and steer them in a way of what's not so wasteful or like one-time use things. So like even if we have, like for our cafe, all of our silverware, all of our cups, they're all compostable. We have a program where if they bring back a glass jar, they get like a nickel back. So we're just constantly trying to find ways of using things that are reusable instead of one-use plastic items.
Encouraging and educating
Yeah.
our couples and our staff too is really important to us in a non-abrasive way, but just just kind of bringing awareness to how much waste is typically involved in the wedding and event industry.
And that's something that we also try to work with our chef too, is like,
Yeah.
let's make sure we don't have tons of food left over. Like, let's really kind of gear our portions to what we think will suit obviously we want enough food, but we don't want tons of food left over. So it's something that we've been working on throughout the years that we've been doing this. And I think we kind of have it dialed in at this point. So.
And I'll add one more thing, just speaking of food. So we just Dig Deep Farms just got or I think they're called, is it just Dig Deep? There's an organization called Dig Deep that just got awarded the contract to farm at Ardenwood. And so I've been working very closely with some of their leaders in the organization to source local food and possibly grow specific items for, our menus and just kind of talk with them in which ways we can sort of use as local food as possible for our catering and our menus at the cafe and at the.
And they're just a great
weddings.
organization
Oh,
that we
they're
want to
amazing.
support. So
Yeah.
we've kind of been in contact with them about certain things that we have on our menu that they might be able to provide.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great connection, Elizabeth.
Well, thank you.
Any more questions? I really like the idea of the knowledge you have of places when there is leftover food. And I'm sure no matter how you plan,
Yeah.
you'll be generous and there will be some.
Yes.
So I think that's great that you have local places. I think that's really important. If nothing is wasted. You might even talk to our new group about flowers that could be used one way or another for informal weddings. I don't know. But I think there's a possible great connection there at Ardenwood, and you'll have to try to develop that over in San Ramon. Any more questions, Elizabeth? I think you sound like a great organization. I know you have very few full-time employees, and I think that's one thing it's important to remember, that you're going to have a large group of people working. How many months of the year-round or not?
Currently we have 3 full-time, but we're probably going to be having 5 full-time very shortly. We work full-time
Sure.
all year round. But our season, usually we start gearing up in March, and then the closure of our season usually goes through mid to the end of October.
Okay. And I gather you do business type casual meetings also?
Mhm.
Okay. So it's more than weddings.
Oh,
It's-
yeah.
It's a variety of special picnics,
Yes.
family groups, whatever.
Yes.
What's the largest size group you'll feel that you would have at this location?
Well, the capacity is 1,400. So
Okay.
I think it just depends on, I mean, and we're happy to take that.
Yeah. When you get to guest numbers that big, that's typically going to be a corporate event, which we've
Right.
done many
Right.
times. The
Okay.
great thing about the Little Hills location is the functionality of it as a corporate event space.
Yes.
It
has
very much
everything.
lends itself to that, and I think fingers crossed, hopefully we'll just be able to do a lot of corporate events there, which is where you get the bigger numbers.
Mhm.
Well, you've got a lot of companies
Yeah.
fairly close by, and so that certainly should help. And you feel everything is at the parking and everything will work for you there.
Oh,
even the largest event.
more than adequate. Yes.
Well, it's a marvelous location, and I gather you are upgrading and making it feel like a comfortable place for you to provide the service and for people to be there. Okay. Well, I think frankly, I certainly think like it's going to be a nice relationship. I think we all appreciate your views about sustainability. I think some are more concerned than others, but I think at the Park District, we really like the idea of being cautious and careful when it comes to what you use, and what you don't have to throw away is important. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
Board members, do I have a motion?
Or so moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Then let's have the vote by a roll call, please.
Director Eccles,
Aye.
Director Coffey,
Aye.
Director Wieskamp,
Aye.
so moved.
Congratulations. And one of these days, maybe we'll get out there and see you in
That
operation.
would be awesome. Yes.
Best luck.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
We're
you.
looking forward to
We're
it.
so
Thank
excited.
you.
Yes.
Good. Good relationship coming up.
All
Yes,
right.
All right,
absolutely.
thank
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is a recommendation for a new agreement for catering services, reservable facilities. Tiffany, you're back.
Great, thank you again. And Director Coffey gave me the perfect segue for this event, for this next item. And I also want to welcome Sarah Lamborn, the facilities supervisor for the rental facilities. She's here with me and has worked really hard on this process, along with Renee Patterson, who supports our RFPs. So I'm going to share my screen, and this was very timely as we had a wonderful event for the Brazilian Room over the weekend.
Yes.
And I think I need to switch again, yeah? Or is this good? Is it, Jim, do you see my notes?
The note page is up, yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. One of these days I'll figure out how to get it. Okay. How about that?
Not quite. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, super. So we had a great birthday party for the Brazilian Room on Saturday, and it's a beloved location. One thing to think about in terms of what AGM O'Connor was saying about kind of niche services is this idea of event production. And that is something that, is not typically done. We don't produce the wedding event. So that's what we're concessioning out at Little Hills is the event production, that full service. And then here at the rental facilities, we use our partnerships with these approved caterers to assist with the event production. So it's similar. We're going to do a RFP. This is the RFP review. We do this once every 5 years. We'll talk a little bit about the 4 buildings, the background, what the payment structure is, the RFP, and then we are excited to have 15 recommended caterers moving forward in the process. Talk about the revenue from these partnerships and our recommendation. So there are 4 different rental facilities: Kennedy Grove, Fern Cottage, Tilden Park Brazilian Room, Temescal Beach House, Martin Luther King Shoreline Center. And here they are. They're all very different, very unique. We'll just briefly look at them, but here's the Brazilian Room, Fern Cottage. Here's a picture of the deck, the Shoreline Center from inside, looking out at the beautiful San Leandro Bay, and then of course the Temescal Beach House. So we have worked with under this model, it looks like for over 25 years is what we could find in our business services records. And it's a business model based on partnerships with the concessionaires or with the caterers. Caterers are required at the Brazilian Room every weekend event, and at the other buildings, any event that ends past 7. When the caterers are there, they are the key holder. And our event staff is not present during those events. So they are functioning as the operator during the events. We expect them to have a very high level of customer service to our culturally diverse public. And we were looking for a variety of menus at a variety of budgets. Some of our objectives in this RFP are to promote use of the buildings. We want them to be utilized as much as possible and by as many people as possible. We want to have a quality experience with a variety of menus, a good fee structure, and then again, building on the theme of the previous item, having environmentally friendly practices, and then also keeping our buildings in good condition. And then we also, since this is a partnership, we also want the caterers to be successful and economically viable. So how this works is that the caterers, once they're on the list, approved list, they are paying a percentage of their gross food and beverage fee cost back to the district. So for wedding and social events, it's 11.5% total, and business events 5.5% total. It's broken down into 3 different pots. So some goes to revenue to the district, some goes into a maintenance fund that then we can reinvest and improve the buildings. And then another small portion, but important portion, goes to promotion. And that's where we can purchase advertisements or do marketing. That's how we break down the distribution of fees. For this request for proposal, we announced it in June 2021. We did the legal ad, the website posting. We direct mailed to 39 different caterers. We had seen a lot of attrition during COVID. A lot of caterers have chosen to either retire or unfortunately have gone out of business. So we had gone from a list of about 20 down to, I think, 10 or 12 currently. So we did a really broad reach out to caterers to try to, bolster back up our list and get that selection for our customers. We use social media, again, with public affairs help. And we had over 30 attendees at the site visit. And we toured all 4 buildings. We received 15 proposals. and we reviewed all the written proposals. We felt that they met all of the qualifications. And so we are deciding and recommending to advance all 15 proposals forward in the approval process, which we're bringing to you today. Here's the list. So we will be having 8 returning caterers, which are shown on the left, and then we will have 7 new caterers. These contracts would start in 2022. And I have to say the proposals were so beautiful and had so many beautiful pictures. I am going to it'll be pretty quick, but I'm going to go through and just share some pictures, one from each caterer's proposal, so you can get a sense of it. So Blue Heron Catering, Cafe Soleil, Carrie Dove Catering. Again, I just love the food pictures, so hopefully this is okay to see these. Chris Evans Catering and Events, very, very innovative food for our new caterer. Classic Culinary Excellence. Hugh Groman, they're going to be a certified green business in Alameda County, which is great. Jasmine Trumpet Vine, look at those macaroons. Monteperry, Olive, S&S Gastropub, Salt and Honey, Arlington, and ending with the Red Door, one of our returning caterers. So I just wanted to give you the overview of who we've received, and we've really enjoyed touring the buildings with the caterers and hearing about all of their journey through this, this pandemic, and the optimism of seeing that events are coming back at this stage. So our recommendation for Board Operations Committee would be to approve and recommend to the full board a 2-year agreement with the possibility of a 3-year extension. And for these 15 caterers to provide catering services. And there's no cost to the Park District. Based on the projections, again, starting out a little slow, thinking the event industry is still recovering. We're looking at about $55,000 annually in revenue. If you count the portion, as I talked about, that goes to fees and promotions, it'll be closer to like a $85,000 or more annually if you look at the total. So that's the recommendation. And again, I have myself here and also Facilities Supervisor Sarah Lamborn to answer any questions at all.
Okay. Any other staff member have anything to add at this moment? If not, I'll ask for board questions or comments. Elizabeth?
I don't have any comments at this point, no.
Aren't you hungry after looking at all those?
Well, I am. Well, yes, they're caterers. Well, yes, I did definitely some of those caterers I remember from what, 16 or more years ago when I was planning my wedding. So yeah, the food is as good as it looks. We tasted a lot of samples.
You understand where they're coming from. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you have no more questions. Is Colin here? I just don't see him.
Yeah, I'm
There you are.
I'm still, I guess what was crossing my mind as we were going through the various companies is how comfortable are we that we did the best we could with the diversity goals?
That's a great question. I did look specifically, for example, for Black-owned businesses. Red Door Catering is a Black-owned business. They promote themselves with that in Oakland. So I think I see an increase in diversity in this selection, and I'm excited about that.
And Tiffany, also extending on Director Coffey's question, but we also talk about the variety of menus to meet the diversity of the communities that we serve in this area also. So that's also part of the process in selecting the caterers too, right? Looking at their menu options.
Yeah, we really emphasize that. And I think we're so lucky to be in the East Bay area where a lot of the caterers are so accustomed to, you know, such a range of food, you know, requests. I think Sarah may have something she is wanting to add, possibly.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that is definitely something we look at. I liked, first of all, our returning caterers, that group, they do a big variety of different stuff. We have one caterer who works out of the synagogue and can do kosher meals. We have one that specializes in Southeast Asian food. Those guys are bringing back like a really broad variety. And then our new caterers are coming in with some really unique stuff. That's something we really looked at when we read through their presentations to us. And even Hugh Groman, that caterer is actually kind of 3 caterers in one. So not only do they diversify in their menus, but also in price points and service styles. So they do like a slider and tater tots business, you know, something that's just like fun and easy for like picnics and stuff like that. And then they kind of have this middle of the road, like really nice platter delivery and drop off service, or, you know, buffet style service. And then they have another like high-end full service catering option. So we looked at kind of really trying to accommodate a lot of different, like a budget friendly option all the way to, you know, your fullest fine service too. So I think we got a really good group.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Sounds good.
I think I'll simply tell the other board members, years ago, the caterers came in and fed the committee. See, it pays to be on operations. And so we got to sampling of all these variety of foods that the caterers could do. And they were so proud of how they presented it and everything. It's just, I think because we are the Park District, we have a chance to get excellent caterers who care about a lot of things. And you saw today that's the mention of the environment and what they do to make it work. I think they're very modern in their thinking, and they're very diverse, which I certainly appreciate. I think we all do. So good job. I think it's great that we got 15 who want to provide service in all of these arenas. So anybody ready to make a motion?
Sure, I'll move the motion.
Okay, a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Colin?
Second.
I see a hand. Colin.
Yeah, my space bar wasn't working.
Let me tell you, I've had Comcast coming and going with all services today. I'm just glad they came back in time so I could be at the meeting. So I understand little problems. All right, we got a motion and a second. Could we have a roll call, please?
Director Coffey,
Aye.
Director Wieskamp,
Aye.
Director Eccles.
Aye.
So moved.
Okay.
Sarah, thank you. Appreciate it. And Director Wieskamp, thank you for reminding us about all that great food that we had in the past. That's one of the great losses of COVID is we can't do that, unfortunately. And I'm sure the caterers would love to do that for us, but maybe in a year or so.
Oh, come on. At least on Saturday, they had cake at the facility, you know, that we had respect for the usual thing again.
Yeah, the great district tradition, cake.
Yes,
that's true.
really. It usually makes
And
most
great
people,
Brazilian food.
it
Oh,
was
that-
all satisfied from the very young to the more mature. Yeah, it was a happy group there at that event. Okay, thank you so much for the work on that, getting that sat. And the next item is a small trails crew update.
Okay, and I've got Patrick Demmons and Eric Bowman joining me, and I think our Chief of Mass, Robert Kennedy, is also here with us. I wanted to do a quick introduction because I think by now all of you know that trails is one of my favorite topics to talk about in the Park District. And I just wanted to do a little lead into Patrick and Eric's presentation. About, I think it was 2014, I had asked many of our staff from both the what's now ASD side and MAST and operations to come together to talk about trails. And out of that came several recommendations out of that in-house workshop that we did among staff. Well, one was we needed to update our trails manual, which sets the standards for trail design and trail maintenance. And so that's one thing that we are still working on. Another one was provide training to our staff in terms of trail maintenance and design and construction. And then the third item was we agreed that we needed to create a small trails crew, a crew that was specifically looking at the maintenance of our small trails, our narrow natural surface trails, as we like to call them. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One is, and I have a background in this in my prior employment where I started a trails crew, but there's a couple of things going on. One is that trails, I think all of you have heard me say this many times, and I've heard some of you say this too now, is that trails is basically our number one facility, our number one asset that we provide to the public. Every day, people come to our parks and they hike or they bike or they ride, horses, but trails are our number one amenity. And we have over 1,300 miles of trails at this point, both natural surface trails and roadways and regional trails. So trails are part of our business. They're the biggest part of our business. And what was happening over time is because we've had so much of an increase in visitation, especially in the last couple of years, is that we've really had a problem keeping up with our trail maintenance. And I see that because I'm out on our trails quite a bit using our trails across the park district. So it was a concern of mine that we were, one, not keeping up with trail maintenance, but also losing some of those skills within our park ranger ranks, because naturally the park staff are drawn to the busy areas, taking care of park visitors, especially during peak use time. So in 2019, we started out as a pilot program. Patrick was hired as our first AWP supervisor leading our Student Conservation Association, our SCA youth crew. And we had great success with that first year. Once we got everybody on board and we started moving, Patrick did a really nice job of bringing that program up to speed. And in 2020, we continued that, but it was quite a struggle, obviously, with managing through the COVID crisis, and we did get some work done then. And then in the current year, I asked the board to approve a second small trails crew, because we had an opportunity because of the promotion of Dominic Williams from AWP supervisor to park supervisor. We had another vacancy in our AWP program. And that alternate work program overall in both counties was winding down for multiple reasons. So we saw an opportunity to sunset the AWP program, but to reinforce the trails program. And so what I had proposed in the budget was a second SCA crew, a youth crew. So we'd have 2 youth crews with 2 AWP supervisors. The union asked to meet and confer on that recommendation. And out of that came an agreement where we decided to do a pilot program where we had full-time staff, existing staff, park rangers, park craft specialists on special assignment for 6 months. And so that program's been working through this summer. In my mind, it's a great success. Our district staff, our full-time staff, had a chance to prove their worth and learn some great skills, get some great work done. And what I wanted to do is, as we're obviously going to be going into the 2022 budget process, prior to that, I wanted to really give Patrick a chance to show off a little bit about the work that the crew has been doing. And I think it's been a great success. And hopefully this is the beginning of a long-term program where we have dedicated crews that are not only getting direct work done, but also helping to train and educate all of our park staff in proper trail maintenance, trail design, and trail construction. So anyway, with that, I'm going to pass it off to Patrick and Eric. And I hope you enjoy this. I think it's really, really nice work, and I'm really proud of the work they're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jim, for that wonderful introduction. I want to recognize too the hard work Eric has done in getting this program off the ground. Basically making sure that we had the ability to get any and all equipment we needed, get any help we needed from the roads and trails staff. Without him kind of spearheading that, it wouldn't have been possible to get us where we are now. So without further ado, I'm gonna see if I can't go ahead and share my screen, if I have that ability. And everyone see that now?
I'm afraid not.
Here we go. How
Yay.
about now? All
Success.
right. Thanks, everybody. And
All
if you do have a question, don't hesitate to just speak up. It's kind of hard looking at these two screens to see anybody that might have a hand raised. But as Jim said, hello, members of the board, staff members here, guests. My name is Patrick Demmons. I'm the acting supervisor for what's being called the Small Trails Crew in Mast. And I think he covered we're a pilot program taking employees from throughout the operations division with experience in trail maintenance and construction and working together to address some of this maintenance backlog. So I'm going to use this time here to give you guys a brief update on the progress of that acting assignment. In the course of this report, I hope to show you all that there's nothing small about either the scope of the work or the breadth of skills that's possessed by our trails maintenance and construction crew. Let's see, forward. So at the start of the 6-month acting assignment, we set out to focus on projects that emphasize the importance of a full-time crew staffed with members who possessed or could learn the unique skills necessary for building and maintaining trails. This is especially true in our park system, which spans 2 counties and has almost 300 miles of narrow natural surface trails. So I tried to establish a few simple goals, but were ambitious and find projects that could fit each one of them. Firstly, every professional trail crew I know of uses specialized narrow tracked equipment like trail dozers, excavators, toters, and compactors to improve our efficiencies and to maximize crew time. So we sought to purchase or rent some of this equipment and use it on the existing trails to improve our tread and drainage. Secondly, the difference between individual staff and a full crew of specialists is our ability to work further from the trailhead. You know, to get in there miles from any kind of trail staging area, import materials and equipment along miles of that narrow trail, and build or repair trail structures in just a few days instead of maybe once a month or a year. Next, I wanted to select some projects that utilize rigging and winches, hydraulic breakers and water charge systems, some of the more specialized equipment that's common in the trail building world, but has not really often been used in our park district. Oftentimes, trail closures can be caused by a variety of reasons. You know, tree mortality, high wind events, and erosion can present major obstacles in the form of boulders and blowdown. And again, these are often a long way from the trailhead. And finally, we set the goal to build at least some new trail mileage in collaboration with many other departments and people from across the district. Our colleagues at the trail development team presented us with a really unique opportunity to work on a new trail project in Pleasanton Ridge, and I'll discuss that towards the end of our presentation. So firstly, I want to talk about mechanized trail maintenance, and a key piece of equipment that the crew is using in improving our mechanized trail maintenance practices is this little Sutter 300 trail dozer. This unit is manufactured in Nevada and is specifically designed to cut and grade a 30-inch wide single track trail. It's narrow, it's squat and powerful, and it has a much smaller footprint than anything else in our current fleet. So we found the perfect place to practice with this machine in Las Trampas Regional Wilderness on the Bollinger Creek Loop Trail, which runs through the middle of the park, and it gently climbs before meeting with a larger fire road that leads to Las Trampas Ridge. The last quarter of the mile of the trail had essentially been abandoned because of the amount of downed trees and the existing trail becoming too outsloped and narrow. So leading the way with pole saws and chainsaws, our Conservation Corps crew members reopened the corridor. And then the Sutter dozer was able to reestablish that 3-foot wide bench for the trail with a good 5% outslope. So this is the kind of work that machine excels at. And by positioning a 75-gallon pumper on a UTV at various points near the trail, we were able to get some moisture into that dry summer soil. And then we were finishing with compaction and a vibratory plate compactor. I think the whole crew really learned a lot about working on narrow, steep side slopes with this heavy tracked equipment. And by combining all these tools and resources, we worked faster and more efficiently and made a much more significant impact than a hand crew could have, even during some of the driest conditions of the year. I'm really proud about how this trail came out, and I hope it can be used as a good example of what mechanized trail maintenance can look like in our park district. So another important task for most professional trail crews is to import large timbers and rock into remote sites for building trail structures, things like bridges or retaining walls, as well as the skill to build those structures in variable terrain. And the ability to read as-built diagrams, develop equipment and supply lists, and execute the design in the field is all key parts of the project's success. And our trail crew members demonstrated all of the above. Two of the projects I've chosen to highlight involving the maintenance and improvement of our narrow natural surface trails. One is a puncheon or a bog bridge on the Guerin to Chabot trail section in Coal Canyon. And that spanned across a perennially wet section of trail from an uphill spring. Now, this bridge had to be designed to accommodate foot, horse, and in some cases bike traffic, though that trail is closed to bikes. And so it has to be able to carry the weight of a horse and rider, and be easy to repair or replace. The other project that I'd like to show you all that took a lot of work getting out and getting into the park to build was a retaining wall that we built in Anthony Chabot on the Buckeye Trail out of Bort Meadow. The initial hand-built trail had a very narrow section that was widened and made safe with the use of a multi-tier interlocking retaining wall. Here's a nice picture of that finished up. And these are all structures that are built in accordance with some pre-established standards from the California State Parks Trail Manual. Standards that we should be using as well. And I do hope that we can get to the point of producing our own high-quality trail manual in the near future. An interesting way that full-time professional trail crews can help park staff with maintenance of their trails is by utilizing portable winch and rope rigging kits, hydraulic breakers, and boulder busters. So occasionally, as you see in this picture, large rockfall, or more frequently tree blowdown or die-off, can create impassable hazards. So these hazards can be really difficult for the park staff to clear, but a really trained trail crew can make short work of that problem with the right equipment. In one instance here, we have a large Volkswagen-sized piece of sandstone, which broke off of the upper rock face here and fell into the middle of the trail, which basically blocked access on that fire access road. The boulder was much too heavy to move in one piece, so the trail crew worked with park staff to bring in a 60-pound hydraulic breaker, and we reduced the obstacle into some manageable pieces, and the trail was cleared in under 3 hours. In another case, also in Las Trampas, the biggest madrone that I've ever seen came crashing down on the Bollinger Creek trail. It took out several oaks and bays as it came down, and it narrowly missed a wooden bridge that we have crossing a section of the creek. So this mess needed to be cleared from the trail corridor and moved across the creek so it could be safely chipped a good distance from our watershed. We don't want to be putting all that cut material into the watershed. And a single ranger or a couple of park staff could very easily cut open this trail and make it accessible again. But without the use of the rigging and the winches, the cut material would have just simply stayed right next to the trail, creating a bramble of dead branches almost 10 feet tall. So we brought in some ropes and a small capstan winch and a log choker, and we're able to create an ad hoc system to move a lot of these piles of brush. And lastly, I've got another picture here of some more recent work where we created a highline system to move large boulders. Again, this is on the Coal Canyon section. This allowed us to put some anchors in on both sides of that bridge that we had constructed. So the advantages to these approaches is that a full-time crew staffed with people who have the proper training are really more practiced and more adept at using the equipment. They more safely operate them, and they can also teach others when the opportunity arises. Lastly, our small trail crew will have the opportunity, or currently does have the opportunity, to collaborate with staff across the district to make the vision of a new trail from the Tyler Ranch staging area in Pleasanton Ridge a reality. If everything proceeds according to plan, over 2 miles of multi-use trail will be constructed on land currently in land bank on the southern end of the park near the town of Sunol. You can see here in this picture, this is Niles Canyon Road. This is the southern aspect of the hill, and this is the site of our new staging area with the trail currently being under construction, climbing the hillside. Our participation in this project was requested by the Trails Development Group in planning, and we're really excited to prove that we have the capability, working with the experienced equipment operators from Roads and Trails, to complete a project like this during a fairly restrictive work window that's dictated by our permitting process, and using some methods that are considerate of the existing native grasses and protected species. So this is kind of a link tree diagram that shows all the different divisions and groups that have been involved in this project to date. Initial construction on the project has begun, and with a major trail disturbance to be finished by the end of October 2021. And the hope is to have the new trail open to the public in late 2022. This is a picture I took just this morning of our equipment operator, Joseph Perez, on the mini excavator. He's working clearly in some pretty dusty conditions, but cutting in the new bench for the trail under the watchful eye of one of our bio monitors. Earlier in the project, we did come across in one of the drainages, gosh, one of the biggest rattlesnakes I've seen so far. And that one safely bagged and moved offsite to live a happy long life someplace else on the property. So, you know, with everything, like I said, goes according to plan, we'll have a nice, gentle 8 to 10% climb up that hillside for our park users. And the trail will be well seasoned and ready to use sometime in the fall. I'd also really like to thank Casey Cardone, Travis Turner, and my acting replacement in the AWP role, Chris Brookins. Without their skills and their enthusiasm, this acting assignment just would not have been possible. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'll stop sharing my screen, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I'll start with the word wow. I mean, I am really impressed. Elizabeth, Colin would like to start off. Elizabeth, I see you.
Okay, great. Well, I just, I think this is fabulous. Thank you so much for the update. It's so fun to see, to actually see the pictures and to see really what this means, because I was certainly involved in a lot of conversations about the small Trails crew when it was being put together, and really I'm very excited about how it turned out and what you all have accomplished. It's just great.
Thank you, Director Eccles. Thank you very much.
Colin?
Well, I agree. The first thing as a member of this board that I've experienced consistently is that when people are unhappy with the state of their trails, we hear it. And it gets from me to Jim or Steve down to the superintendent of each park. And you know, it's often just weeds that are a major objection from our public. But the trails are truly what we do that brings with it the most popularity of those who use the park system. So I'm as well happy to see us always improving our ability to maintain and create good and environmentally sound trails. I'm glad you folks are looking out for the snakes.
Thank you, Colin. Well, I am truly impressed. Sometimes when I hear about all this equipment, I think, do they really need all of those strange things? Well, you just showed me how you use all of those strange things for areas that there's no other way you could do it. I was really impressed with that small piece of equipment can do the exact work of the small trail. I just, you couldn't possibly get that done as efficiently any other way. So you made a believer of me on equipment and on what you can do there. I think the whole board is going to be really impressed. I hope the others will get a chance to see this because there's nothing like seeing something happen to make people understand it. So I think you and the crew have done a great job. I don't know if Eric has something to add. He must be feeling pretty pleased about it all. Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, thank you, Director Wieskamp. I'm enormously proud of this crew. I think there's a person for the right place and time, and Patrick is the one to, just take this over when he did, and he's done so much with it. It's very impressive.
Well, I think you've done something that could convince anybody that
Right.
this is worthwhile and that ought to continue. I'm not sure small crew is the right name for it either, but whatever it is, you're a very effective group. You've done a great job. And I'll speak on behalf of the whole board. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Director Wieskamp. You're welcome out at the Tyler Ranch project any day. I know that's in your district, and
Yes,
anytime you want to come.
I'm
and take a look.
excited about that because it may be a little controversial to neighbors, but I think it's going to be, once it's all done, it's going to be so beneficial for them to have access to a good trail that is doable for most people right in their backyard. So I'm looking forward to it. Again, thank you so much on behalf of the whole board. I'm not sure what your name should be, but whatever it is, it's effective. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, on to, oh my gosh, ordinance 38 update.
Director Wieskamp, if I may interrupt, we had a public comment for that item.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Mr. Mike Vandeman is here, and I understand that you rode ahead, but if you would like to speak, Mr. Vandeman, I see you raising your hand. We can give you 3 minutes.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'd just like to point out that trail construction destroys wildlife habitat. It's something to always keep in mind. And wider trails destroy more wildlife habitat. And my question is, why does it need to be 3 foot wide? I mean, I can walk on a trail that's, I don't know, less than 2 feet wide. And when people meet, one of them can step off the trail without doing much damage. So I just wonder why the trail is so wide and why, why this new trail needed to be constructed at all.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Do we have another speaker?
That is all for this item.
Okay. Then where were we on the agenda? Ordinance 38. Thank you so much. If there's anybody else who wants to speak, please just feel free to let us know. And we'll get an answer from Mr. Vandeman later. Okay. 2021 Ordinance 38 update.
Good afternoon, committee. Alan Love, Support Services at the Police Department, here with our biannual review of Ordinance 38. As we know, every 2 years, we kind of do a staff review of Ordinance 38 and make any suggested changes to Ordinance 38 based on current law or anything like that. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and have a presentation. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, it looks perfect.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Oh.
So as mentioned, every 2 years we do an Ordinance 38 review. And this is really a team approach. And I really have to tip my hat and thanks to the operations team of Steve Castile and Ruby Tumber for helping make this happen, our legal partners, Rachel Sater and Jason Rosenberg, and public safety, specifically Captain Breed, Lieutenant Joe Kocher, and Heather DeQuincy, without whom none of this would be possible. So I really want to thank them. So just to kind of remember the process is that we make a request to all staff members to bring forward anything that they think that should be addressed in Ordinance 38 or any changes. The review team, which was on the previous slide, reviews the process and reviews the recommendations. Legal provides review and makes any corrections or changes, and then it goes again through a review team and the legal has the final review. We're now at essentially step 5 of the process of doing presentations to the various stakeholder groups. So as far as the timeline, COVID has kind of slowed this process a little bit. It was scheduled to go a little bit earlier in the year, but here we are in September. So the next step will be taking it before the Park Advisory Committee in October, and then a presentation of the full board in November. So I just really want to start off with the Ordinance 38, Section 400.5, which deals with camping. And this request came from our legal division. In 2016, we added this section to Ordinance 38, and legal brought it to our attention that we needed to make a correction to address the law regarding evictions and being able to remove people from campgrounds. So we've just added the language of when the violation threatens public health or safety. And this is not just merely an ordinance violation, but it have to violate public health or safety. The next one has to do with fire. One of the things that has come up through operations is the use of barbecues or grills on the beach areas, and wasn't previously addressed in Ordinance 38 that it was prohibited. It was posted, but it wasn't prohibited. This language allows it to be enforced, except on beaches or anywhere posted as no barbecue. And that is for a safety issue. The next one is adding the Bridgyard building. It's Judge John Sutter Regional Shoreline, the right to serve alcoholic beverages. We add those specific areas into Ordinance 38. And since Judge John Sutter, the Bridgyard has come online, we'll be adding that to Ordinance 38. So this has to do with, this section has to do with quagga inspections. So the current law written in Ordinance 38 is float tubers must pay the car top launching fees, which was confusing to both staff and the public. So we added that there is a need to pay quagga mussel inspections fee where applicable in the different parks and where it's posted. The next section up for review is Ordinance 38, Section 800.3, which addresses feeding restrictions. We already have a feeding restriction in Ordinance 38. Specifically, we're dealing with feral or wild animals, and staff has requested the specific of including cats in the language. The next section has to do with slack lines and hammocks. It has been brought to, it was brought to the committee's attention about potential danger to children, specifically running around and being injured by slack lines or hammocks, as well as the potential damage that it can be done to trees that are not able to support a person's weight. So we did have the property aspect already in Ordinance 38, and now we're adding the language that no person shall tie or fasten any shrub or hammock or slack line. And this was a practice, but this is just essentially codifying the practice of not allowing those. Additionally, we're going to have some administrative edits in Ordinance 38 this year. One of the things that was brought to our attention is that some sections of Ordinance 38 were only enforceable as a misdemeanor. Although the ordinance specifically said that any section could be enforced as an infraction or a misdemeanor, we found the court clerk would say that no, if it doesn't say that in the table of contents, it must say I or M for infraction or misdemeanor. So we're going to be making those administrative edits. Section 410.1C deals with, we had two different areas of some areas that were allowed beer and wine, and the other area which was allowed with beer, wine, and champagne. So for ease of reading and kind of clarity, we're just going to add those both into one area of beer, wine, and champagne. Finally, we're going to talk about Little Hills and Ardenwood, specifically just calling out their full name, Little Hills Picnic Ranch and Ardenwood Historic Farm. So we're going to make just a this is a wall of text, and I absolutely apologize for that. But what I'm showing is what ordinance 38-410C currently looks like and what it will look like in the future, essentially just calling it out and being a little bit clearer for the public to read as well as staff. So again, I just wanted to really thank the operations team of Ruby and Steve, Rachel and Jason in legal, and Captain Breed, Joe Kocher, and Heather DeQuincy, who really helped make all this come true. And I'll be looking for a recommendation to move this to the full board. With that, I will take any questions.
Did we lose Ann?
Yeah, I think we might have.
I believe we did. I no longer see her on the participants list.
Director Eccles, would you mind taking over the chair duties?
Oh, sure. I'd happily take over. So I saw that Director Coffey had his hand up, so go ahead.
Thank you. I'm looking, Captain Love, at 410, and I can't figure out what our alcohol policy is. Can you maybe summarize it and how I should be reading this language? I'm thrown off. I understand what it's doing is generally prohibiting its use except where allowed, specifically. So there has to be a rule somewhere where it's allowed, and
yes, Director.
or it's setting a negative, and then it's creating exceptions to that negative. But then it has, except for area designated as the reservable group picnic area, and then the term and all areas of, then this list. What is going on there?
So thank you, Director. It is confusing. The language has kind of been cobbled together over many revisions. So there are some areas that are prohibited, such as the Nile staging area of Alameda Creek and all of Crown Beach and Shadow Cliffs, Contra Loma as well. And you see that it has had some area that essentially it was reservable Quarry Lakes Regional Recreation Area, except for reservable group areas. And then it had an ending date of 1/1/2009. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do, is kind of clean up that language and be a little bit clearer. Generally, hard alcohol is prohibited anywhere in the parks except for specific areas of the Tilden Golf Course and Redwood Canyon Golf Course. Alcohol is prohibited in all of the parking lots and all the developed areas, except for, I'm sorry, not the developed areas, developed roads. And then there are some specific areas of parks, some parks, that alcohol is not allowed. And I mentioned some of those earlier, to Shadow Cliffs, Contra Loma, and Don Castro, Quarry Lakes. So what we're trying to do on that section 410.1 C is trying to clarify where it is, so it's a little bit easier for members of the public to understand.
Okay, so generally at reservable group picnic areas, you can bring beer and wine, except for this list of parks where it's not allowed anywhere. And that list is Contra Loma, Shadow Cliffs, Martinez Shoreline, Miller Knox, and Don Castro and Quarry Lakes.
That is correct.
Except for reservable group picnic sites where alcohol is allowed by permit only. So then we get another list where it's never going to be allowed by permit either, I guess, and that's Contra Loma and Shadow Cliffs. Am I reading that right?
Yes, sir. It is confusing, and that is something that I can come back and come up with a little bit clearer language, so that way it is evident.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is I get asked that a lot, and my response has been it's case by case, which it was generally true, I think, but as to picnic areas. But it seems to be generally allowed at picnic areas, except when you and some by permit only, except when you get to Contra Loma and Shadow Cliffs. Can you tell me what the history is there? Were those problematic sites for allowing any alcohol at all?
I can speak to specifically Shadow Cliffs and Contra Loma where they were historically problematic, and their swimming areas. So we try and, where at all possible, prevent swimming and alcohol from mixing. Del Valle is obviously the exception, but it's a much bigger park. So that's something that you'll notice is a kind of a theme in those Don Castro, Shadow Cliffs, Quarry Lakes. Those are all swim areas.
Got it. All right. I mean, I'm if you want to make revisions as part of your ongoing flow of work, that's fine. Not just for me. I think it just needs to be reasoned through. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Great. Well, thank you, Director Coffey. So did we have, I see several people who want to make public comments. Before I open the floor to them, Captain Love or Mr. O'Connor, did you have anything you wanted to add? Anything further?
The only thing I would add is thank you, Captain Love, for leading this effort. It's it's a challenging effort to go through because we gather a great deal of information from several sources, and then we work with legal to narrow it down. It's quite a bit of work, so I appreciate the effort on Captain Love's part to corral this and bring it to the committee. So thank you.
Yes, I agree. Thank you, Captain Love, for your work on this.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm gonna first do it in the order of when I saw the hands go up. So I think Amelia Marshall had her hand up first. Why don't you go ahead? You've got 3 minutes.
Hi, everyone. I'd like to thank Captain Love for his presentation, and Ordinance 38 is near and dear to my heart as a member of the Volunteer Trail Safety Patrol. We do try to stay on top of the nuances as it changes from cycle to cycle, but I would like to address the perception that there is opacity around, sorry about the background noise, opacity around the process. I gather it's on a 2-year cycle, and input is requested from stakeholders. But I know that within the Trail Users Working Group, people were very puzzled that there was evidently a process that had just closed for input to Ordinance 38 questions. So I'm hoping that there is a way that it will be made more public as to that. Now, all that said, our guru Jerry Kent says that it is bad policy to try to make changes in the ways of park operations through Ordinance 38, major modifications, rather than on the master plan level. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. We do appreciate these incremental changes. It must take a lot of effort, and I thank you for listening to these comments.
Thanks very much for your comments. Next, I'm going to call on Mike Vandeman. You have 3 minutes. And you'll need to, okay, go ahead.
First of all, I just want to say how wonderful it is that I can now attend these meetings without a huge expedition on public transit, and also not to have to show my face, which is better for my safety. I have a question about illegal camping. I've noticed a number of illegal camps, for example, Claremont Canyon. And these are apparently homeless people, but I'm wondering what is done to find these people suitable housing, or some alternative to camping in the park and interfering with wildlife's use of the park. The camps I saw are right in a creek right next to a creek bed, preventing the animals from using the creek when they need water.
How about if I just very quickly, Captain Breed or Captain Love, I'll just jump in really quick. Mr. Vandeman, we are informed by several sources, obviously park staff, when they discover these camps, we also get notified from members of the public such as yourself. And then we work with our public safety division to notify the folks that are there to vacate the site. And I think that maybe Captain Breed or Captain Love can talk to the fact that that part of that process is giving them information about services that may be available. So maybe Captain Breed, you want to add into that?
Absolutely. Thank you, AGM O'Connor, Captain Lance Breed, police captain here at the East Bay Regional Park District. We work collaboratively with our park operations staff and the public anytime that we get a report of an unsheltered or unhoused individual in the park. We work with them to give them notice and try to work with each county to find them options for shelter. So we pass on that and we work with them to ensure that there is a bed for them prior to asking them to move on. But just like Mr. O'Connor just stated, it's something that we take very seriously. It's something that goes on throughout the district, but we're very sensitive to the needs of the unsheltered.
Jim, I have something to add also, if I may.
And go ahead, AGM Chaburo.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, Anthony Chaburo, AGM of Public Safety, your Chief of Police. Good afternoon, board, and also colleagues and community members. I just wanted to support staff here that there are 3 key elements to this. Captain Breed touched on that. We do give a best business practice, which is a 72-hour notice to anyone that we ask to leave. Number 2, we will never throw away personal items. That is not something that we do, nor will we ever ask someone to leave unless we have a destination for them. So I just wanted to underscore those 3 key practices that we undertake, which are consistent with best business practices. And of course, this is in alignment with our values, which are safety. We value the safety of everyone. Claremont Canyon has been a concern because of fire, and we have done much work with the community members there. And of course, serving our community, and then ultimately stewardship is part of this. So thank you for allowing me to speak.
I appreciate hearing that.
Great. Thanks to both of you. And thank you, Mr. Vandeman, for your comments. So I think we have one more comment. Kelly Abreu, you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Well, first off, a note on the effectiveness of this homeless policy. Right here in Fremont, in Niles Canyon, there are 2 parks. One of them is controlled by the city, the other one by the park district. And only one of them is a continuous pervasive problem with homelessness, and it's not the park district park. So that tells you what the difference between the 2 is stark. It's an enormous difference. Now, somebody just now mentioned about the opacity around the process of making the laws and modifying the laws. The opacity is so opaque. It's incredible. This law, Ordinance 38, is longer than the U.S. Constitution, longer than the Constitution. The police themselves don't know Ordinance 38. I had a police officer of the Park District stand in front of me and give me instructions, orders under Ordinance 38. He didn't even know which subsection, it was a male, by the way, he was referring to. And then when the police run into problems with that, of course, what do? They fall back on their legal department. And the legal department actually knows the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. So as it turned out, I got a nice letter in the mail from the lawyers 10 days later. There are 2 lawyers on the board of directors in this committee right now. And they may have heard of something called the separation of powers. I am just amazed and stunned that everyone is sitting here. It's like we're asking the FBI to write the laws. Or, what is going on here? The U.S. Marshals write the laws. We have the U.S. Constitution. We have a legislative department They have staff. The legislators are called lawmakers for a reason, and they write the laws. Okay, and if we are going to abdicate that responsibility and have the police department write the laws, then there is no separation at all between the executive and the legislative, is there? None at all. What is going on here? This is obscene. This is a travesty. This is Montesquieu, Locke, the founding fathers. All of you need to go back to law school or go back to somewhere and relearn, the fundamental principles of American constitutional system. We need and we should have lawyers in here from the legal department telling us exactly how to write the laws and rewrite the laws. Not the police department. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abreu, for your comment. And I understand that I'm not actually able to respond directly. I don't know whether staff can, or we can take it up another time, but I do want to assure you that the board is very much engaged, and we would not approve any recommendation unless we felt that it was correct and the right policy.
Well, Kelly's premise is absolutely absurd. There is no separation theory between us and our staff. These folks that have talked to us today, be they administrative staff or police staff, are our staff, and they're bringing these recommendations directly to us to make the rules. So the whole premise of some kind of separation of function is just false.
Okay, so I think this is our final item on the agenda. It is an item that they are asking for approval. So do we, Colin, I guess Colin can still make the motion. I can move it. Is that correct, Jim? Okay.
That's correct.
So
okay, I'll make the motion.
Okay, and I'll second. And then Denise, if you can take the roll, please.
Sure. Director Coffey,
Aye.
Director Eccles.
Aye.
So moved.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. And so the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for participating.
Okay, I think.
Wait.
Oh, sorry.
We just gotta, if there's any other committee member comments, correct?
I'm so sorry. I don't have it in front of me.
That's fine, Director Eccles. So it's just the next item is any committee member comments, and I don't know if Denise is notifying us about any additional public speakers. Is that correct, Denise?
We have not received any more requests from those in the meeting room to speak at the public comment section.
Okay. And then any other board comments?
Colin, do you
Or
have any
committee member comments?
No, just to echo, thank you all for all the effort and time and work that went into the presentations. They were all very well done today. I appreciate the opportunity to attend and be the beneficiary of all that work. It's very impressive.
Thank you, Director Coffey, for helping us out. Appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely. And I really appreciate that we covered so much ground in such a short time. I love that about this committee. It's always jam-packed, but very efficient. So appreciate Jim and your team and all of the other management and team members that are here to make that happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Eccles. We appreciate that. And then the final item is AGM comments, and I have no comments at this time.
Great. And so since I don't usually chair meetings for the Park District, this is the first time and I'm filling in, but do we have to have a motion to adjourn? I don't, in other meetings, I haven't had to have a motion to adjourn, but you remind me.
We do not, Director Eccles.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay. So is there anything else that we need to do for the good of the order before we adjourn?
Don't believe so.
Doesn't look like it.
You're
okay.
Good.
Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks for all your great work.
Thank you.
Thank you.